I also want to play some comments from Kari Lake, former Arizona gubernatorial candidate. And I want to get your take, actually multiple takes, on what these comments mean and how closely they're being monitored. Take a listen.
We're at war, people. If you want to get to President Trump, you're going to have to go through me, and you're going to have to go through 75 million Americans just like me. And I'm going to tell you, yep, most of us are card-carrying members of the NRA. That's not a threat. That's a public service announcement.
She says it's not a threat. How does law enforcement look at comments like that? Are they a threat?
So law enforcement looks at comments like that as protected by the First Amendment. What they're looking for is the reaction to those comments on the other side, which is in the chat rooms, in the message boards, are people talking about, let's get our guns, let's do something. Remember, in Cincinnati, just days after the Mar-a-Lago search warrant, a guy with an AR-15 rifle came in and opened fire on the FBI's office there until he was killed in a shootout with police. So you've got the group thing, you've got the crowd thing, but you've got the lone wolf thing to consider in these factors. And Florida's a funny place. Under Governor DeSantis, they made it easier to carry guns. You don't need a permit. You can have concealed weapons. But it's not an open carry state. So you can't show up with your AR-15 rifles in full uniform or your pistols on your hip, you know, and fully exposed. But there's a trick, which is if you're hunters on the way to a hunting thing, or if you're fishermen going fishing, or if you're a sportsman on your way to target practice, then you can. So you've seen Second Amendment groups do these gatherings where they carry their weapons in the open, basically challenging law enforcement. They're thinking about all that.
I was fascinated where you were going to go after Florida is a funny place.
Well, this kind of follows on what I was saying earlier about the ways we have all changed in the last 5 years. I talked about the courts and the justice system, how it is a little more fortified, a little more understanding of what it's dealing with when Trump or a Trump case comes knocking on its door. It's the same thing with law enforcement and the FBI. Wow, have they learned a lesson over the last couple of years to listen to chatter, to pass that chatter on, to really take these kinds of comments and specifically what's going on social media very seriously, where they can. Obviously, there's Discord channels and things like that that are more low-key and harder to penetrate. But we know they've been doing more work in this area because earlier they talked about extremist groups, Merrick Garland, et cetera. And I think this is going to be another example of where our system has been stress tested, and we might see the reflection of that over the next couple of days.
And to Audie's point, I think and hope that the convictions and sentences of some of the January 6th rioters have sent a message. I mean, one of the purposes of our criminal justice system and sentencing is deterrence. You want to deter the person who's being sentenced, but others too. And you look at these sentences, as John mentioned, the leader of the Oath Keepers got 18 years, Stuart Rhodes. We've seen other sentences, 11 years, 7 years. These are real sentences. And I hope that anyone who's thinking of doing anything takes note of that.
Trump has spoken out on behalf of rioters who have been convicted. At one point, he tweeted an image of them singing in jail.
Right.
Do you want to be singing in prison for Trump? I mean, that's a cool tweet, but I don't know if people want to lay things down on the line for that.
We can't forget, on our own town hall meeting, he was asked, would you pardon all these people if you were reelected? And he said, sure, they came with love.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what resonates with people, you know, counting on whether Donald Trump's going to get elected again, going to end up in the White House again, he's going to potentially pardon you, or if they are looking at, you know, what happened in the wake of January 6th, if that does serve as a deterrent. You know, one thing that has been striking to me is how many of the same players are popping up again. We're talking about the Proud Boys again. You know, I was listening to an interview Roger Stone did with Donald Trump yesterday. Again, another player talking about the supporters that are going to be there in Miami to stand for Donald Trump. And then Roger Stone is quick to say, but we're assembling peacefully. People are going to be assembling peacefully. So we'll see if that resonates.
Carlos, we're hearing bellicose rhetoric coming from the president, some members of Congress, some of his allies. How is that rhetoric, that online bluster, how is it impacting the law enforcement reaction?
Well, law enforcement agents across South Florida are taking all of that into account. In conversations I had with folks within the Miami-Dade Police Department, they told me that they were aware of some of these social media posts. They were keeping a close eye on the rhetoric that was being used, not only on social media, but by some of these elected officials. Over the weekend, the former Republican candidate for governor in Arizona, Kari Lake, she made some comments about the indictment that have brought a great deal of criticism her way for some of the language she used. Here's a portion of what she said over the weekend.
We're at war, people. If you want to get to President Trump, you're going to have to go through me, and you're going to have to go through 75 million Americans just like me. And I'm going to tell you, yep, most of us are card-carrying members of the NRA.
And so, Jake, the Miami-Dade Police Department tells me they are in communications with the Department of Homeland Security, and they're keeping a close eye on two events that they have pretty much confirmed are taking place. One is happening right now outside of the Trump Doral property here, where some supporters have gathered. They're holding up signs and waving the U.S. flag, as well as some posters supporting the former president. And we're told that they're also keeping a close eye on some protests that will most likely take place tomorrow outside of the federal courthouse in downtown Miami.
All right, Carlos Suarez in Doral, Florida. Thank you so much.